The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Sherman. This is a special COVID-19 edition of Politically Speaking, and it's my pleasure to welcome Mayor Boddy of the City of Owen Sound and Wayne Ritchie, who is the City Manager for the City of Owen Sound. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you here.
Good afternoon.
Now, I see, Wayne or Ian, you have a special COVID-19 project on the go.
It just kind of showed up there. It'll fall off one of these days.
You're not trying to make it clear that you are a man of wisdom and gravitas?
No, it's just when you don't go out much, you're kind of at home. It's less reason to shave.
True. I see that, Wayne, you have not followed in the example of the mayor by, what shall I say, having a COVID-19 project.
I don't want to spoil my boyish good looks, David.
I've noticed a number of those projects around, so it's one of those little things we can have a bit of a laugh about. But there's been lots of things happening here in Owen Sound. Lots of things, even as recently as this morning. I was noticing a city press release that Wayne, you must be in a very dynamic situation.
Well, I won't say it's changing every day anymore. It certainly was at the start, David. Matter of fact, it was probably changing by the hour, but we've had the same philosophy throughout this crisis. We're trying to listen to our senior partners, particularly those in the health field. Our local authority has been excellent at passing information to us. We, as a team, we listen to it. We try to apply that information to what we need to adjust in Owen Sound, always with the premise of keeping our public safe, keeping our employees safe, and contractors in this case safe as well. And then we react. So I hate to tell people that it is somewhat reactionary, but in fact that is what it is. But those are the guidelines we use.
I know that Dr. Era has spoken of the many conversations that he's had with people in governance, in management at various levels, and there is a lot of conversation, meetings that happen on a regular basis. Does that true also for the county side, from the political side, Ian? Are you in regular conversation?
Well, every Friday morning we have a telephone session with Dr. Era and with all the councillors on county council, and Wayne will sit in, city staff will sit in from the lower tiers as well, so we're getting updated. We're certainly getting those daily updates from Dr. Era that goes out to the public and media, I guess. I actually had a phone call with him and Mr. Sims from the hospital and Bill Walker this morning for an update on our field hospital.
Yeah, there's a lot of things a lot of partners that are in play, and obviously Mr. Walker is a big part of that, and it's good to hear that he's keeping you all well updated.
But there's the other way around. It was more information coming from the hospital and Dr. Era from the health unit to Bill and I, going the other direction, so that we know what's going on. And you're right, there's a lot of partners and a lot of them working together.
Well, there's a lot, speaking of partnerships, there's a lot of events that are happening in the city. And I think one of the biggest ones is, of course, the 10th Street Bridge. And I noticed in yesterday's paper, there have been some developments that were somewhat unexpected. Do you want to comment on that, Wayne?
Certainly. I don't know if they were unexpected, David. We try to plan for every contingency on major projects, and we knew the 10th Street Bridge, there were a lot of contingencies. That's why our contractor and our engineering firm put in monitoring devices exactly to make sure that if something did occur, that we were aware of it and again, could take proactive steps. So we were hoping nothing like this would happen during this construction, but we were prepared for it. We are making sure that, again, public safety is always paramount. But we were hoping it wouldn't happen, but we were certainly prepared for it if it did.
And just to be clear, this is apparently there's some building shift of that one remaining building right on First Ave East. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry for the people who weren't aware what the issue was. Absolutely, the one building that is closest to the bridge is shifting, and I think we all know from in this town, many properties shift throughout the year, but we wanted to make sure that during the construction period and the part where we're perhaps putting piles in, that kind of thing, that we are taking absolute precaution. And once we have the heavy construction side over with, then we'll come back and see exactly what we can do and where the building is. But that is the issue at this time. And we have, as always, we have the right people in the right place at the right time.
Now, I noticed by the newspaper article on this that they'll be starting to drive piles shortly. That and I recall when the FHT building was built, there was quite a long time when they were driving piles, and there was a regularly bang bang. Yep. People who were closer could perhaps feel it a little more. That's going to be beginning shortly, I understand.
That's correct, and we literally had a meeting yesterday with all the parties on that project, and I would say the anticipation is that the driving won't take as long there. The soil conditions are maybe a little more conducive to getting to bedrock earlier. So, but like all large major construction jobs, that's the thinking going in, and we certainly have some great experts on pile driving and engineering there for us. So, but yes, you should be hearing that clang clang shortly.
Good. But the project as itself is still on. It's still on track and all that stuff.
It is. We haven't missed any major milestones yet that we haven't felt we can make up. So I'm still very optimistic at this point that you'll be driving over that bridge before Christmas of next year.
Good. Well, I won't say we'll hold you to that because things can happen.
Well, absolutely.
Good to hear. I noticed that there have been some changes in our transit system as recently as this morning, that you're limiting the number of people on the bus. And I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere, but seriously, that you're limiting the number of people on city transit to 6 people per bus. What's behind that?
Well, it's certainly obviously social distancing for our public, our ridership. That's important. And in this case, it's equally important that we keep our transit drivers safe. So the best way to do that is social distancing. Our buses aren't the big ones that certainly we were familiar with a decade ago. They're relatively more efficient buses for our needs. So we have looked at it. We've looked at best practices. We've taken all the information we can from people in the transit industry and the health industry. And we've also been discussing it with our contractor in this case, and we've arrived at 6 is probably the right number for our buses and our town. There will be some inconvenience at times. We've modeled it. We've seen, I'm going to say our peak periods, we have occasionally ridership where we'll have 8 to 9 people on. That's just too many to continue to ensure reasonably safety, particularly for the drivers. So we've come to 6. We have rules in place that we will put in, but I think generally, David, what we found, the public, and I don't think only in Owen Sound, but I think generally are showing great patience, great understanding, and hopefully that continues as anyone is inconvenienced being at a bus stop. And if the bus has 6 passengers on it and no one's getting off at that stop, there will be signage there, so you'll understand that is a possibility and what to do when that happens. So sure. Patience, and wash your hands are my mottos right now.
Absolutely. Now, there was also another decision made last week, or announced last week, and that is staff layoffs. And I believe the number was 40, is that correct?
It's in the neighborhood of 45, David, and I can tell you, I know the mayor feels the same way. Of the decisions we've had to make so far, this was the most difficult. But council, I believe, certainly council values our employees. We value the services they're providing. So we gave layoff notices that the first day of layoff would be May 12th. So there's some time yet before anyone is laid off. They are temporary. Every one of these positions will be coming back as soon as we can recall them. We are providing 3 months health benefits. Council felt at this time it was important that no one be without health benefits for themselves and their families. So I think that's been appreciated. And if possible, we're not sure the various programs, everyone's reacting as quickly as they can. We're applying under the CERB program. Apparently that's what's in, it's an acronym. I won't get into it. If allowed under that program, Council has agreed to top up normal wages to 70% of the pre-layoff earnings. So I think we're trying to do everything as much as we can to make sure our employees are treated well, that they want to come back and work for us. They're all good employees, they're important jobs, but also, as always, the ratepayer, we have to make sure that we come out of this, that they're able to come out of this economically as well as we can as well. So a very difficult decision, not one that was taken lightly by ourselves or by council. But and so far, I think the staff, although always disappointed, they love their jobs, they love to work here. I think they are understanding of what it is.
Do you want to add some further comment, Ian?
Well, just, we knew without collecting bag tag, without collecting some of the interest on tax payments, on wastewater payments that we know are going to be coming late, not having the revenue from the rec facilities, we're going to be down in revenue and we're going to be challenged financially for the rest of this year and probably into next year. So we had to do something, unfortunately, looking at balancing the books and trying to manage our taxpayers' money. So it was a difficult decision, but it was something we felt we had to do.
Will there be a financial update at a future council meeting?
Yeah, we've got Kate Allen will be presenting next Monday night, Monday, the 27th of April. We'll be back on with a regular meeting. It'll be our second regular meeting since all of this has started. Again, a couple of people will be in the room and the rest of council will be attending by teleconference. And we'll be getting a financial report, which, there's a lot of estimates of what it's going to be because we really don't have measurables at this moment, but predictions and measurements. Kate has been in contact with other financial people around the province, municipal financial directors, et cetera, has a feel for some of the policies and some of the ideas, and that will be incorporated or thought through when she presents her report.
Well, the online system was, how shall I say, a bit challenging last time at the last council meeting. I understand that there are some changes in that too, some technical changes. Yeah. Will people be able to watch online?
That's the idea. I'm actually going down this afternoon to do a test run. The IT department has been through it a couple of times. They were through it before the last council meeting. We had everything set up to go at City Hall, but unfortunately it was patching into the Rogers sound system that's, I guess, antiquated in the back of City Hall there. So, it had all been tested before last time, but it was the connection that didn't work. And it's my understanding that Rogers has been down there. We've tested it. I'll go down and have a look this afternoon, but it should be better.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I'd heard quite a bit of feedback in social media about that. So will there be any way that people can, obviously they can't, there will be no public question period, but is it still possible to submit questions for the council meeting?
Yeah, if they submit questions by, I think, to the clerk, to Brianna Bloomfield, so it'll probably be bbloomfield@owensound.ca by about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock Monday afternoon, then she'll get them to us.
Okay, so there still will be an opportunity for public input, which is always an important part of the democratic process, and people can watch right here on Rogers TV, and I've been told as well that things will be better. So we'll just have to watch and see.
Well, we're trying to be open and transparent, so we're trying to keep that public question period coming in as best we can, and trying to broadcast as best we can. we're flying by the seat of our pants. There have been an awful lot in the last month. So even being able to get the meeting off the ground last week or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was a challenge. And it's unfortunate the sound didn't work. And of course, there's always going to be people on social media that will find something to criticize. But, boy, we were happy just to have the meeting.
I'm sure. One of the things I wondered about is, Wayne, have your staff reported any problems with compliance with the distancing and the kind of staying home, or are people? Do you find people are pushing the boundaries in the parks or anything?
I don't think so, David. I think, we've had some anecdotal comments, but I think generally people are taking this seriously. I believe the communication from the Premier and the Prime Minister have assisted with that, as well as His Worship the Mayor, saying to people, stay home, stay apart. The more we do that, the sooner we will be out of this. So have we had complaints? We've had a few, not very many.
Well, that's good to hear. What about services with the layoffs that are happening? Will that have any impact on services that people will see?
Absolutely, it will. We are determined to keep our essential services going and available, and that includes water, wastewater, garbage disposal, police and fire. Internally at City Hall, many of our services are continuing. People are continuing to move. To use our services. Developers are continuing to put forth proposals. So that's very interesting. But when people are out enjoying our parks and keeping their feet moving throughout those parks, they will notice without a doubt, the grass is longer. We are not bringing any seasonals or summer students in, and they do a lot of that grass cutting. So we will be maintaining the parks. We don't want to lose what we've spent decades, quite frankly, they were very proud of. But, those people who have said, my goodness, that grass is longer than it's ever been, absolutely, you will see that. So there will be places where people look. And I think as I keep saying, they have been very patient. They've been very understanding. I think they appreciate that for 2020, probably we're not going to lose any of our native parks, but they will be maintained at a lower level. Same with road maintenance and sidewalk maintenance. We will be absolutely making sure we maintain the minimum standard that we must. We've always been well above that, but our calls will be prioritized. So where you might have called before and we had someone literally out there within an hour, they may be the next day, and some may not get responded to. It's just a fact.
What about places like Harrison Park? Will the campground be open?
Right now, no. That campgrounds are not allowed to be open. That's one of the things our staff in community service monitors daily to see what is allowed, what's best practices. And like everything, if it's allowed somewhere, doesn't necessarily mean it will be here. We have to take all of those, put our own slant on them. But currently, no, we are not taking reservations for Harrison Park.
Ian, a question for you. I noticed that in today's paper that Mayor Tory has they're holding their first online council meeting, so we're well ahead of the curve in that respect. But he is proposing to extend the state of emergency. Is there any conversation in Owen Sound about the length of the state of emergency?
That's not something that I would be even considering. We're not a city of 3 million or whatever Toronto is. We rely strictly on the best advice that's coming, and it's very reliable advice from Dr. Era, as well as what's coming from the province. So we'll wait and see and let them decide. We're working with the county, we're working with Dr. Era, but it would be something that we could consider, but not anything that's in discussion now.
So basically, it's sort of a wait and see, wait for the evidence, wait for the advice from the relevant people.
That's the big part of everything we're doing and that's why it was changing so quickly. Every day we seem to get new advice and new directions and get new material or new information that we're making our minds up day by day based on today's information, because yesterday's was already outdated. So that's the way we'll continue. There's a certain amount of guesswork to it. We're trying to predict where things are going to go and when they're going to open, but right now it's just guesswork.
One of the questions that has been raised in some circles, I'm not going to say I've heard it in any government circles yet, is relief from things like property taxes. And there early on was some mortgage relief, which turned out not exactly to be the relief that people were hoping, because it was basically a refinancing of mortgages. Wayne, is there any conversation around taxation and tax rates and maybe changes to any of that?
At this time, David, no, there isn't. And I think, we are in the cost recovery business. We offer services to people and they've much appreciated. We're not a private company where we could reduce our profit margin, anything like that. We have a cost to provide the services to residents. We recover that cost. Hopefully at the end of the year, our revenues from taxation match our costs. So we are trying to, as much as we can, control those costs. But at the end of the day, the ratepayer today will by and large be the same ratepayer tomorrow. We have no place to fund that from. I believe at the end of this year, not only Owen Sound, most municipalities throughout North America, probably the world, will be running deficits. That's not allowed by the Municipal Act. I believe that will be addressed by the province. I think they're going to have to allow it this year. How we fund that deficit, not only in Owen Sound, but throughout North America, will be the challenge for councils and the public. There are options, but to say at this point, and I think once Kate gives her review on Monday night, it will become perhaps more obvious to everyone why, in fact, what we're seeing and with our assumptions to actually say we're then going to reduce taxation it just isn't possible.
Right. So there's no conversation around a tax holiday or a tax. My services are going down. I shouldn't be paying more taxes. That's one of the arguments I've heard.
Right. And certainly some of the user fees that, number one, for public safety. Also, some of those public members are having difficulty with their own finances. Bag tags, we are encouraging people, if you're out, our bag tags are still available, buy them and use them. If you're going out just for a bag tag, we don't want you doing that. So we are accepting garbage without a bag tag. Annually, that generates, top of my head, $350,000. So roughly $30,000 a month is in jeopardy there. We are seeing bag tags down. So yes, taxes are the same. Our services, by and large, the cost of them has not changed. And as much as we would love to give our ratepayers some benefit, it would be detrimental in the long run, in my opinion. But there's still time for council to look at that should something happen that we're not seeing, but we're trying to limit that deficit at the end of the year for the ratepayer.
What's your take on that, Ian?
Well, pretty well the same thing. You got to remember, over the last 12 years, we've been reducing commercial taxes and industrial taxes, the ratio relative to residential, because we're extremely high. We're now getting those rates down into the middle of the pile, so we have made a lot of progress. Also, when you look at our tax increases over the last number of years, we've been lower than any of our comparative cities or towns, whether it be in Graham Bruce or whether it be places like Brockville, Collingwood, Stratford. A lot of those places have had much bigger tax increases, and we've been able to maintain that while still putting money into reserves for infrastructure. But there really isn't a nest egg sitting there that, that we put money in the sock for something like this to lower taxes now. So everyone wants more services right now. Everyone wants to pay less taxes, but I guess that's the same as ever. If we do, as Wayne has said, if we reduce taxes now, run a deficit, we're going to have to pay off that deficit. We're going to have to pay off the interest in that deficit, and you're going to be paying next year or the year after if you don't pay this year. So it's coming at some point, and it's just trying to manage and we definitely will be looking at seeing what we can do to maximize support for our businesses and our taxpayers over the coming weeks. But it will be challenging. Got to also remember that 48% of our budget is police and fire. Those are budgets that are really controlled by labor contracts, and there's not much we can do with them. So where you're talking about trying to find cuts is the other, 55%. That's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Ian, have you heard anything about any changes in the developments that are online for the city? Are they still in the pipeline? I noticed that the ANPET development of the Southbridge property just to the south of, across the street from Canadian Tire and Seasons, and just south of the Meridian Credit Union building, they're still in, they're going great guns. Are we going to see more of that?
Well, as Wayne has hit on, we're still getting applications. A lot of our applications for development come in months in advance, and they go through a pre-circulation process where engineers look at it, planning looks at it, and by the time it surfaces up to the council table, it has been in play for quite a while. I do know the planners met yesterday, the day before, maybe by video, by audio, with a developer in town that's moving forward, and they want to keep going. They've got a plan. They want to get there. They maybe can't start to pour foundations, but they want to be ready to be able to pour foundations as soon as they can. So that type of work behind the scenes continues, and there's still interest in Owen Sound for sure. And who knows with this, maybe there's going to be more interest down the road. People living in Toronto, running a business in Toronto, and start to say, boy, this is pretty dangerous down here, getting on and off the elevator of the condominium. I could live in a house in Owen Sound for cheaper, have my staff up there, and so we'll see.
That's interesting. That's very good to hear, Ian. Wayne, last question to you. Is your retirement still on track?
It is so, yeah. I'll look forward to different times, but yes, it is.
And maybe a few rounds of golf if the law permits it.
I'm sure hoping so, David.
Okay, that's great. I want to thank the both of you for your conversations today and the good news, and it has been good news that you've shared with us. So Wayne Ritchie, Ian Boddy, City Manager and Mayor of Owen Sound, thank you both very much. I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking. We'll see you again.
Thanks, David.